Moors, welcome back to the Moore Weekly, where we're bringing the latest news at Alhambra High School. For this week, we're doing something a little bit different, and the Moore Weekly is creating an investigative report on the environment of learning and grades here at Alhambra High School and how it impacts different student and minority groups on campus. Grades have long been a measure of success in school, but what happens when a pursuit of an A starts to replace actual learning? As artificial intelligence tools becomes more common in classrooms, students are facing new pressures and new shortcuts. According to a 2026 Pew Research Center survey, over 50% of U.S. teens report using ChatGPT for schoolwork. So are these tools enhancing understanding or just helping students chase higher grades? In this report, we investigate the growing tension between authentic learning, academic pressure, and the role AI plays in shaping both at Alhambra High School.
I went from actually doing the assignments and taking in the information to finding ways to cut corners. So to be honest, I would use like AI, or I would just search up the answers.
I feel like everyone cheats in some way. Like cheating is just so easy nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's a better alternative than just doing an assignment now, especially with AI and stuff.
We asked Alhambra High School students in an anonymous survey if they felt that they prioritize grades over learning and what contributes to that environment and culture here on campus. Out of 144 responses, 84% of students reported using AI, with 10.4 admitting to using it to complete assignments and generate answers. When asked, how does AI affect the way you learn, students anonymously responded, I believe AI affects students because it gives them the answers they're looking for instead of actually understanding what they're supposed to. Another said, it makes me lazy. I know I'm capable of doing the assignment, but why spend the time when I could just take a picture and copy it? And no one actually takes the time to do the work, they just generate answers and cheat with AI on test days if possible. However, it's not just the convenience of AI that causes this, but also the pressure students feel to prioritize grades over authentic learning. In the survey, we found common themes among students who prioritize grades over intellectual curiosity due to personal and family expectations, peer competition, and the overall pressure of getting into a top college, leading many students to use alternate methods such as AI to gain a better grade. We spoke with AP Government and Economics teacher Mr. Lau on his thoughts about authentic learning and the pressure students may face when it comes to grades.
AI is unfortunately making students think less for themselves, and that is the real tragedy. Now, with regards to doing things just to get the grade, that's something that's always been the case, whether it's using other modes of cheating, dare I say. But while that's always an issue, the developments of AI has made it more alarming. And as teachers, we have to be just more creative as to how we will get our students to engage in content and really demonstrate true learning. Okay, so that culture has always existed, even from the beginning of my teaching career. And that could be tied to either parents that pressure their kids to get good grades so they can get into good schools or graduate. And sometimes students tend to just do whatever they need to do to meet that grade. And conversations I've had with students, what do I need to do to get an A? What do I need to do to get a B? It's not always so simple, and it is part of the structure of an educational system to quantify results. And most certainly it is difficult to gauge true learning at times. And so that is where, once again, I lean to the authenticity of an activity where students demonstrate their learning.
Many students agree. In the Moore Weekly survey, 78.6% of respondents said they feel at least some pressure to prioritize grades over authentic learning, and 31% identified getting good grades as their primary motivation in school. Students cited parental and family expectations, college admissions pressure, and their own personal expectations as the strongest forces, pushing them to focus on grades rather than truly understanding the material. Not only did the Moore Weekly want to understand the bigger picture about why students prioritize grades over genuine learning, but also how it affects our minority groups and underrepresented populations on campus, which is why we interviewed students and asked them how this environment contributes or affects their learning.
whatever was just easier just to get by and just to be done with that assignment, I would do, because I had other responsibilities. So in the end, I probably don't remember most of what I learned from the past years, because most of it was just to pass the class.
I feel like if you're really trying to get a good grade, you're gonna have to do it some way. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing to cheat, but I've never done that. But I find myself to like translate things like in class or when I don't have to, because sometimes my teachers doesn't help me.
Now, during our interviews, we noticed that some groups, such as our ESL students, also had their own personal struggles that a lot of us cannot relate to.
When I first came here into the Alhambra High School as a freshman, I would not participate in any of my class. I would just stay in that corner and just pretend to be a good student. But actually, I don't understand anything.
I feel like since I came here, I was like really scared, because like not knowing the English language that well was like obviously like there was going to be a language barrier, of course. But there are some classes, for example, in math, and this is not my experience, but I know a friend that she doesn't know English at all. She would have a hard time learning math, and because she didn't understand the language. I feel like they are really intimidated by other people that actually speak English, and I feel like that distracts them from not actually learning in class, you know, or like doing something else, or just not paying attention because they don't understand.
Do you feel like you have the same access of support as you did when you were a freshman?
I feel like I don't have the same amount of support. Like I said, freshman year, pretty much all of my teachers, when there was something off or when they felt something wrong, they pulled me aside and they would talk to me and see what was going on. They made sure that I was okay here at school and at home. But as the years went by, I feel like it's more of just passing the class and not really having that relationship with the teacher.
How does teachers, in your eyes, lack of care affect your academic success?
For that, it's because if they're not really on students, and like if they're not really on me, then I'm not gonna really do the work, and it just doesn't like really motivate me doing the work as well.
Since you are a transfer student, what differences have you seen between these two, the school here and the school back then?
The school that I used to went to, the teachers were on me every week. They were always checking up on seeing like what you have to do and what you didn't do. There were once a week they were like, "This is your grade," and they're like questioning how can you bring it up and stuff like that. Compared to this school, they're not as on me. They don't really check up on my grades. They don't care if I do the work or not.
In our situation on our campus, you have to go to get help. Counselors don't come in, teachers, administrators don't come in to ask you how you're doing. Here and there they will if they're out in the courtyard hanging out with lunch and stuff like that. But you have to physically ask your teacher, "Hey, can I go to the counseling office? Hey, can I go to the nurse? Hey, can I go talk to this certain person?" You have to physically ask. You have to be your self-advocate person. You can't just rely on adults to go to you.
There are some teachers where they'll treat you better and some that will treat you differently. And you could tell, especially a lot of teachers where if you're a female, you could tell they treat you a lot better. And if you're a man, they don't treat you as well.
You know, there's a wide variety of teachers at the school, and I got the lucky pull when it came to this year. All my teachers have been very supportive towards me. They've made sure that all my academics have been kept up, and they didn't really care about my background or anything. They just helped me. However, not all people are lucky like that. Some teachers might be a bit different.
So a common theme we see among students is that a teacher's level of care really does affect how a student performs in a class. But aside from a teacher, a lot of factors outside of school can also affect how a student feels academically.
We have the stereotype that Chinese always study good and they're always good in math, but actually sometimes it's not, which like people like who are Asian or Chinese are afraid to seek for like help and assistance on their homework because they're gonna get criticized. Aren't you supposed to be good? But like we're just not. We are normal people.
Like 8th grade year was not a very good year at home, and that had affected my grades a lot.
I think there are a lot of factors. One of them is just family responsibilities. A lot of our Hispanic families maybe require a little bit more from their children. Maybe they need to work, maybe they need to help out around the house more. I know I'm Latina, and within my family, I have had responsibilities when I was growing up.
I get looked at when I'm going into the restrooms. They don't know if I'm a guy or a girl, and it's hard to identify who I am, and has raised some safety concerns. But for people that are trans or incoming, or like more of like, I don't feel comfortable using a certain gender restroom, I feel like there could be more. I've tried to mention that a couple times to staff and administrators, but they're saying it's not doable because of how the restrooms work at lunch and stuff. There's not enough monitoring for kids and safety reasons.
From interviewing all these students, it seems like a lot of people feel as if they have to find their own support or find their own places where they feel included.
I would say the Dream Center is the very first place that the place that I came into the U.S. and I feel very welcomed, and I'm not afraid of how my accent being treated.
Us having each other as immigrants and as students part of the Dream Center, yeah, that's like something good to have here in Alhambra High School.
Now we have more opportunities at the Dream Center for other people, other students to go to, and I feel like it's the leadership in our student council and stuff like that. Just a lot of change over the last 4 years has happened positively.
So in the end of all these interviews, this was the general wish that a lot of our students seem to want from our teachers.
I feel like the standard should be like, make sure that you check up on your students, like especially if they're struggling with like keeping up on homework or, just not turning in assignments. I feel like it should be the standard that you should come and talk to that student and say that they need that problem to be fixed instead of, just letting them, quote, like, do it on their own.
I feel like just be more supportive with us. Just be more supportive, more patient, more calm, and just like have that patience in the sense that, like we might not understand it at first, but with like instructions or like step by step, like easy stuff, it might get easier for us, yeah. So I would like to finish saying that teachers should definitely support us more. And I feel like they should be more understandable when students don't understand their topics or what they're doing.
That's it for this week's video. Thank you to all of those who contributed and made it possible, and we'll see you next week.